Hello and welcome to the Success Showcase. I'm your host, Eric Lopkin with the Modern Observer Group. And with me, as always, is Chip Janiszewski from the Happiness and Success GPS. Chip, how you doing this week?
Doing great. How are you, Eric?
Doing fantastic. Spring is in the air. So we're finally away from the cold weather. It's been warming up. Things are starting to bloom.
Yep, we've actually got lettuce planted on the deck. Pretty amazing. The signs of spring. My wife loves it.
Oh, yeah, there's nothing better than homemade vegetables. They're fantastic. All right, so our guest this week is Tiffany Hamm Goveia. Tiffany has a fantastic story. She has been a single mom. She has reinvented herself as part of the Newington Chamber, as part of Geico Insurance, and now she's launching a coaching business. She's incredibly inspirational, and we are lucky to have her here. So, Tiffany, welcome.
Wow, Eric, that was quite an intro. Thank you. Hi, Eric. Hi, Chip.
Hello.
So, Tiffany, tell our audience a little bit about your journey, how you started out, and where you're going.
All right. Well, how did I start out? I was born. No, I'm kidding. I started out I actually was working for ESPN. I worked there for 12 years. And while I was there, I had a son and then unfortunately got divorced. And that kind of took me on a different path, we'll say, in learning how to be an adult, quote unquote, and be a single mom while also balancing work, play, hopefully, and also what I wanted to do for myself. And to be quite honest, those career goals kind of got put on the side burner because my priority became raising my son. So, do you want me to keep going? All right, I'll keep going. So, I can keep talking.
So how did you adapt to being a single mom? I mean, did the support system, were you on your own? How did you cope with this?
That's a great question. I coped with no support system here in Connecticut. I'm originally from Pennsylvania, and my family wasn't around. All my friends, when I was married, decided to not be friends with me anymore because of my ex-husband. So I was really alone, except for a few mom friends I was able to make and meet and got some support from them. But as far as family, it was me. So that was a huge adjustment. A massive adjustment was being alone, being lonely, and creating a world for my son who deserved it. So I, stepped outside myself a lot. I went to, I made friends at work, basically, is what I did. I just reached out to people and said, hey, I'm, looking for a play date for my son, or I'm looking for a play date for myself. And just started down that path, and it was rough. It really, truly was. And mostly at the time when my son was younger, we had a split shared custody, and, you don't become a parent to become a part-time parent. So most of my heartache and the difficulty was not being with my son as much as I wanted to be with my son, 2 days on, 2 days off. So you had those days where it was wonderful. He was there and my life was full. And then there were 2 days where I was really bored and lonely and, concentrating on trying to keep myself mentally healthy. And that's when I began running and exercising and doing that kind of stuff. So it was a huge learning curve, one that I do not ever wish to do again, obviously. And, it was rough. It was just, I don't know how else to explain it. But in that process, I also learned a lot about myself just the hard way. And I've always said, I wish I had the map to the easy route because I would have loved to take that. But for whatever reason, I seem to follow the map that's like, you want the longest, hardest way? Then let's go this way.
And yet, that really planted the seeds to the person you'd become. You said that's when you started running. And I know you're still running to this day. In fact, I believe it was last year you ran for Alzheimer's, correct?
Well, that was a walk. In the past, I've run, I can't take credit for running that, but in the past, I've run a half marathon, I've run a 5K, I've run a few 5Ks actually. And last year got myself up to running 5Ks. Unfortunately, with the pandemic, it was all virtual 5Ks. This year, my goal is to run another half marathon in the next year and a half of my life. So we'll see how that goes. But that was my stress relief. That was the time that I dedicated to just me. And when I was training and running, I would take my son out on his bike and jog next to him. So to get my training in, I'm like, no, you're going to ride your bike now. Let's go. So, which was always fun. So yes, if only I knew back then where I'd end up today, I would again take the long path.
Yeah, well, obviously you've learned a lot by going through what you did, and I would imagine that Eric said you're starting a coaching business, and I imagine that you're going to have some really, really good insight to offer these people that you're working with because you've been through all of this. And the most important thing you can do is appreciate that person in the mirror and what you've been through and who you are for other people out there. And I'm sure that your son very much appreciates it too. And it's got to be a ball, pun intended, that you're actually going to watch him play baseball right now too. I imagine he stayed along the health path with you also. So I would imagine the two of you have grown together.
Yes, and I get reminded, one of my coworkers at Geico reminds me of that, for 13, 14 years, it was just my son and I. And, at the time, you don't think about that, building a little human where it's just the two of you. But I think we have a different relationship because I don't know any other relationship. Yeah, obviously, I'm just a mom to one. But we do have a special bond. And I'm so grateful for that. And now I'm remarried and been remarried for almost 3 years. And it's my husband always says, like, you have a different relationship than I had with my parents. Not that that's bad or negative. It's just we spent so much time together. We grew up together. He taught me to grow up, and I hopefully led him down the path to be an awesome young man.
Yeah. Your mom and son, but your best friends too.
I like to say that. My 17-year-old doesn't like to hear that, and he certainly does not consider me his best friend. When he was younger, yeah, I was the best friend. He was going to take me to the prom. Chip, I'm no longer allowed to go to the prom, and that's okay.
Now that's a subject for another podcast.
Yeah, that's a whole. You might want to bring on a therapist for that one, just to help me work that through.
Well, I mean, that's actually, we've heard that a lot from parents. You have that relationship with your kids until they're about 13, 14 or so. Then you're just an embarrassment. Parents are embarrassing. And then they start coming back as they get older. And I remember seeing this statement, and I'm just going to paraphrase because I don't remember it exactly. But it was, when I was 5 years old, I thought my parents were geniuses. When I was 12 years old, I thought they were embarrassing. When I was 17 years old, I thought they were idiots. When I was 30 years old, I thought they were embarrassing. When I was 40 years old, I thought they were geniuses. It all goes in a cycle.
Yeah.
Great. So I have 23 more years to wait till I get back to the genius level.
Some get back there faster.
No, it'll happen as it goes on. So, I mean, obviously, I'm in a different spot now because I've been a new grandpa for the last 16 months, and I have two sons also, and went through the whole gamut now. And now it's just so much love and appreciation on both of our parts, and just watching our little Cora grow up and so on, and getting FaceTimed every day is great. But watching him, become a dad, there's nothing like that. And I'm sure that's something that you don't want to rush, but it's going to be an amazing
Oh,
ride when that happens, when you're a grandma, believe me.
oh, yes. Yeah, many years from now. But yes, I can't wait to see the man he's going to become, in that regards through your eye, just like you're looking at your son now, seeing it through your eyes. That's like a whole nother level, that's, I remember when I'm sure you guys both experience this, when they're born, you're like, what is their voice going to sound like? Who are they going to be? And then they start talking and you're like, oh gosh, stop talking. Stop, are you going to run? Oh, stop running.
Yeah.
Like it's that next stage always that you're kind of parenting, shifting to parent that new person that just woke up that morning.
That's it.
So,
I always tell new parents, you spend the first 2 years waiting for them to walk and talk, and you spend the next 18 years waiting for them to sit down and shut up.
yeah, it's true. It's absolutely 100% true. But you don't want to hear that as a new parent.
Oh no, most new
But going,
parents actually appreciate that. They find it funny because they believe it's never going to happen to them.
Yeah.
not me. That's true. I'm
It's
not going to
one
be
thing
like
to
that.
tell them that it's going to happen. It's another thing for them to experience it, and really
Yes.
wonderful as they do. And all you can just sit there doing is just biting your tongue and smiling and just really soaking it all in. It's just such a wonderful thing. So, I know Eric said you're starting a coaching business, and he probably knows about it. But can you share with us what you're going to be doing? Because I don't know myself, and I'd like to know more.
Oh, yes. So, going back just a few years, I'm going to take a step back to answer that question for you, Chip. A few years ago, I was trying to find myself, and in the process, lost my job. And the gentleman I was dating at the time decided to break up with me a few days later. So I hit a little rough patch. I discovered coaching through that because I knew I wanted to be happy, and I didn't know what I was doing wrong. I always thought that I would find love again or find love, period. And for some reason, it was never working out for me. I did have a dream of, getting remarried and finding the love of my life and, you know, sending Hallmark, cards to everybody. So I started working with a coach, and after, a year, really took some time just for me and my son, decided that um, I should get into coaching as well because it did such a changing your mindset and changing your beliefs and understanding who you are and how you operate, I think is so invaluable for anybody across the board. But for me, it was so life changing because I finally saw me for the strengths and the weaknesses and what I was doing right and wrong and able to adjust that. When you get kind of caught in your daily spin, I guess you want to say, you can't step out of it and have that perspective, and it really coaching really helped me do that. So the past couple of years I've been throwing around this idea, as my one of my favorite sayings is it's like throwing spaghetti on the wall to see what would stick. And then the pandemic happened last year, so that kind of put on a pause. And now I've decided, working with Eric, that I'm going to finally restart my coaching business. I'm going to be a mindset coach, and I'm in the process of getting some yoga instruction to become an actual yoga instructor. So I'll be doing both. I do believe that the mental and physical strength can be helped through coaching and through yoga in a gentle way, not like we're going to run a marathon. I promise anybody who works for me, I promise we won't be doing that. And I'm really excited about it. This is the first time in a long time. I love my jobs. I love what I do, but I've always had a tapping on my shoulder is the best way to describe it, that I just wanted to do more. I wanted to help, and I'm definitely not going to be a nurse at this stage in the game because I have a thing for blood and vomit. So, and I love recruiting because you're helping the company culture and you're helping that person getting the job. There's so many things I like about that aspect of it, and I really want to help women feel how I was able to feel and learn what I was able to learn to help me get to where I want to go, get to my goals. And that can be, even love, but more personal goals, whatever they might be, I can definitely help with.
Yeah. Now, I mean, just as we've been talking, let's sort of tick these down. You're, still obviously a mom, taking your kid to baseball games, all of this. So he's around. You're working as an HR person at Geico. You're working part-time at the Newington Chamber. You're working to build a coaching business. When do you find time to breathe?
Well, I'm breathing right now, sitting outside my son's baseball game. He's just about to play. I actually do. I've learned to schedule that time in for me, which was I can't tell you, when I was a single mom, I wouldn't get my hair cut. I wouldn't do anything for me. I wouldn't go shopping. Everything went into my son. And through coaching, I had to learn to take care of me too. You cannot pour from an empty cup. And I was constantly pouring from an empty cup for years. For years, I was treading water and sometimes drowning. And I had to learn to schedule that time in for me. And so now I'll take a walk slash jog around my neighborhood. I have a 3-mile loop. I'll put on music, or sometimes if I'm walking, I'll listen to Audible and listen to a book and a novel, or listen to something funny or inspirational, and jump on the elliptical. I have learned that I need to make that time for me. It might not be something physical. It might be giving myself permission to sit my butt on the couch and watch Netflix. But as long as I'm scheduling that time for whatever I want to do, if it's bake or cook or talk to a friend on the phone, whatever I'm allotting, and again, giving myself permission, because I think that's a lot of the struggle with women, is that we shouldn't be doing that. We should be doing this. And then you have the guilt, and then you have the things that don't get done, and then you have to schedule that time in for yourself.
Yeah, that's so important for people to realize. You always hear people saying, "Oh, well, I'll sleep when I'm dead." They're trying to go 24/7, and the fact of the matter is, if you do that, you burn out, and you tend to burn out quickly. You have to take that time to recharge yourself. And that can mean exercise. That can mean binge watching something on Netflix. I recently wrote an article about find your guilty pleasure, because when you spend time doing that guilty pleasure, get rid of the guilt, you're recharging yourself.
Oh, absolutely. It's when you don't release the guilt and you're sitting there thinking about all the 10,000 things you should be doing besides watching Netflix or doing nothing or reading a book or anything like that. Then you have the guilt and you're sitting there like, oh my gosh, I should be doing A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and the list keeps going on. So you're really not recharging in that instance, because your brain is working and thinking about all the things you should be doing.
Yeah, and expectations that are out there that are all man-made as far as what we're supposed to be and this and that, whatever. The bottom line is you have to work on yourself, and you have to look in the mirror and realize that person there is special. I mean, the saying goes, love your neighbor as yourself, and you can't give your best self unless you love that person in the mirror too. And the bottom line is, whatever we're doing guilt-wise, and I'm sure you hear this from your coaches and whatever, but guilt is self-inflicted. It's our own expectations of ourselves. And the bottom line comes down to brass tacks. The only person that we control is that person in the mirror. And if somebody else says something, you never know where they're coming from, how their day's going, and so on and so forth. I love to use quotes when I'm doing my presentations, but a couple of my favorites are, what other people think of you is none of your business, because there's nothing you can do about that. Another one is, don't take yourself so seriously, because nobody else does. It's really important to do that and to focus on yourself, and you're going to realize whether you're doing this from your heart and from your soul, or whether you're being arrogant to yourself. And the bottom line is, it's so important. And once you have that going for yourself, man, can you pour that out to everybody else? And I'm sure that that's what you've done subconsciously, but now consciously, to your son over these years from what you've learned.
Oh, yeah. I mean, obviously, Chip, going back to the 17-year-old, he also doesn't think I know anything. So I've actually hired him a coach. I'm not even kidding you. He's working with an academic coach right now, because I know coaching is so powerful and important. And she's telling him all the same stuff I've told him. It's just not me. So he's the only person I can't coach in my life. The only person. And that's true. But going back to your point really quick about the person in the mirror, many years ago, I had somebody suggest to me, it was a month challenge, that every morning, and maybe you've heard of this, every morning you get up and while you're brushing your teeth, brushing your hair, getting ready, you look at yourself in the mirror and say a couple things. You tell that person, you look at yourself in your eyes and you say, I love you. You're smart. You're beautiful. Whatever's going on that day. You're going to kick the butt out of this presentation. You are a great presenter. You're strong. You're capable. I can run 3 miles. Like whatever. And actually it feels so uncomfortable, but by, the third or fourth day, you get used to telling yourself that you love yourself. Like when was
Yep.
the last time you looked in the mirror and was like, I love you. You're
Yep.
awesome. You're beautiful. Look how pretty your eyes are. Like those are the things that sometimes we forget. And Chip, you're absolutely right. You have to be good with the person in the mirror. And if you
Yep.
feel uncomfortable with that relationship, then you got to change it.
Yeah, you can't give the best of yourself unless that person is there. And when I talk about positive mindset development, uh, you have to start every day with a positive routine. I tell people, wake up in the morning, go look at the mirror and smile at yourself, because the coolest person is smiling back at you. The next time you're feeling down on yourself, pretend your hand is a mirror, smile into that, because you can't possibly stay down while you're doing that. So it's really, really important to form these little habits like you're talking about of doing it. And if you can start the day with that, instead of listening to the news and turning on all of the social media and all that other kind of stuff, it's so, so important to ground yourself to start the day and to finish the day on a positive note too.
Agreed. It just sets you up. It really does. And I don't think people know the power of just doing, I mean, how long does it take you, Chip? 4 minutes, maybe? You're not asking for a half an hour. It's just a quick routine that you can build in.
Yeah, those daily affirmations are so important. Finding something that you're grateful for. And unfortunately, when most people think about daily affirmations, they think about Al Franken doing Stuart Smalley on Saturday Night Live, and so they feel silly doing it. But once you get past that image, and once you get used to doing it, you do feel the power of it.
No, absolutely.
Oh.
One of the best ways to reinforce
Yeah.
that is developing a practice of gratitude. If you want to start liking yourself and whatever, start thinking about all the wonderful things that are going on around you and what you appreciate. And that's going to help bring out the best in you, because you have a lot to do with what you feel grateful for.
That's so true. And writing down every day the 5 things you're grateful for that day. And some days for me it's coffee every day. Thank gosh, I'm so grateful for coffee. Whoever made coffee is the best person in the world. But I'm grateful for it. So it's just, and when you're having a negative thought or a bad day, stopping yourself and going, okay, it's not that bad. What am I grateful for? Like 5 things off the top of your list. I'm grateful for running sneakers. I'm grateful for gas in my tank. I'm grateful for, like anything that's popped up. I'm grateful for gluten-free pretzels. Like anything that's really and it just stops you and brings you back.
Yeah, and it's even better when you write it down and read it every day. Gratitude journal.
Yeah, absolutely. Agreed.
So give our audience an idea of where you are now. We've said right now you've got 2 jobs, Newington Chamber and Geico Insurance. How is this different from where you started out?
Oh, it's so different. I was working in the accounting department for the ad revenue for ESPN. I was dealing with billions and billions of dollars of ads running on ESPN1, which included at that time, and they still do, Monday Night Football, which is funny because I took and I'm not even kidding, the math challenge course in college where I got a C because I couldn't really divide fractions. So everyone who knew me, including my family, thought it was hysterical that I was in charge of billions of dollars of ad revenue for ESPN. So back then, I wasn't planning on leaving ESPN. I was, this is it. I'm going to spend my whole life here. And to think back then, I was let go in the very first rounds of their layoffs when they were just starting. Obviously, a lot of other things have happened since then with the company. And then to figure out who I wanted to be and where I wanted to go, it's every step is a process. If you would have told me back then that I would have met my husband and I would actually be happy and know what love actually feels like, I probably would have, fell on the floor laughing. So that in alone is such an arc for me, just to be finally know what love is, I guess is the right point. Obviously I have love for my son and love for my family, but to actually know what it feels like to be unconditionally loved by another human being who actually, promised to spend the rest of his life with me is another level I never thought was possible. And that is the God's honest truth. So besides that arc, career-wise arc, I would have never guessed I would be doing what I'm doing. When I left ESPN, I knew the one thing I didn't like about that role was I didn't talk to people. And that's when I got into recruiting. And that's when I was able to help and talk to people. And that's just kind of evolved over the years, where I'm still doing that obviously for Geico now. And now I still I want more. And I think the tie in all to all this is my son is graduating from high school next year. And that idea to me is bonkers, but at the same time, it's kind of like my rebirth in the fact of, obviously I'm not going to like hang up my mom, job, but he's going to be away in college. What am I going to do? Like, what am I going to do for Tiffany now? And that's been pressing on me for the past couple of years, where I finally got to the point where I want to do something for me. Of course I want to make $1 million doing it, but even so, I can do it into retirement. Wherever we end up going, whatever we end up doing, I can bring those skills with me and do wherever we land. I can start a little business there, and that excites me. And that really brings back yet another evolution of myself, of, like you said in the beginning, Eric, reinventing. I think we always have to do that. At least that's my personality.
I think what's really important to note is that you were talking about after your first husband left and you'd lost your job, and you were talking about feeling alone. And now everything you're talking about, doing social media for the chamber, HR at Geico, coach, it's all about being with people and collaborating with people. And that really seems to be the journey, is that you went from someone who felt alone to someone who's constantly interacting with people and thriving on that interaction.
That's a very good call, Eric. Yes, you're absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct. And I think that's why I feel like I'm home in that regard, where I really love my chamber job. And it's because of exactly that reason, because it's not just all about me. I get to have people to bounce ideas off. I get to have smart business people in Newington and the surrounding towns be able to listen to my ideas and say, that's a really great idea, Tiff. Let's just tweak it that way, or vice versa. I can't tell you how much, if I could get paid $1 million doing chamber work, I would do that in a heartbeat. And then coaching on the side. But you're absolutely correct. Yeah. And there was many years of feeling alone, many years of holidays alone. And let me tell you a really funny story. So talking about being alone, my son and I were living in an apartment. I got engaged. My husband and I bought a house. We are moving in. Couldn't wait to, sleep in the same bed as somebody. How crazy is that idea every single night? And now, I realize I'm like, I need some alone time. I got so used to being alone and, talking about recharging, that now I'm like, I need just to spend like 2 hours and not talk to anybody. Which is, I tell my husband that, and he's like, I don't understand anything that you just said. What do you mean you don't want to talk to anybody? And I'm like, I just need a couple hours.
No, time. There's nothing wrong with that, and everybody does need that.
Absolutely. So we're just about at the end of our time. So, Chip, what do you think is the big takeaway for our listeners this week?
Now, Tiffany, I met you a couple of years ago through the chamber, and I really never knew you before, but I always knew you were outgoing. So hearing your story as far as going from point A to point B is just amazing. And it's just wonderful that you are in the coaching now, because your journey and everything that you've learned from that and what you have as gifts as a result of that are meant to be shared. And that's what you're going to be doing through your coaching with people. So God bless in what you're doing. And I know you're just going to be doing a wonderful thing. Whatever we can do to help you out, we're there for you. So keep on keeping on.
Thank you so much, Chip. That means a lot coming from you. Thank you. Thank you.
I think for me, one of the big takeaways is that there were a lot of points along your journey where you could have just quit. could have given, and you just kept persevering, you just kept pushing through, and now you're in a place that you're enjoying rather than just surviving. And I think that's so important for people to remember that, yes, that is within their grasp.
Absolutely. You said it perfectly, Eric. I was surviving for many, many years, and now I'm thriving. Yep, absolutely.
Thank you so much for agreeing to be on the show. We've really enjoyed having you. And for our listeners, you've been listening to the Success Showcase. You can catch us every week at xvadio.com podcasts. You can also find us on the Apple Podcasts app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and wherever you find podcasts. Remember, make this your best week ever and make next week even better. We'll see you then.